In a quiet suburban home in the USA, a shadow of unease fell over the once peaceful nights. The family's loyal German shepherd, Shadow, had begun to growl at their infant son, Ethan, every night and in the early hours of the morning. Sarah and Mark, Ethan's parents, were baffled. Shadow had always been the epitome of gentleness, especially towards their baby. He would lie patiently by Ethan's bassinet, his tail thumping softly whenever the little one stirred. Now, this strange behavior had them on edge. Sarah first noticed the low, guttural growling one night as Ethan slept soundly in his crib. A chill ran down her spine. She found Shadow by the crib, his usually soft brown eyes fixed intently on Ethan, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. Startled, Sarah gently coaxed Shadow out of the room, but the following night, it happened again. And then every night after that, around the same time, Shadow would begin his unsettling vigil. Days were a different story. Shadow remained his affectionate self, often nudging Ethan's tiny hand with his nose, letting the baby grasp his fur. He'd follow Sarah around the house, a silent, watchful guardian. This contrast only deepened the mystery. Was Shadow sick? Did he sense something they couldn't? Sarah often found herself awake at night, listening to Shadow's growls through the baby monitor, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. They consulted their vet, who, after a thorough checkup, declared Shadow perfectly healthy. Next, they called a dog behaviorist. Sometimes, the behaviorist suggested, dogs can sense subtle changes in their environment, things we might miss. A faint smell, a high-pitched sound. They checked for gas leaks, unusual noises, anything that could be triggering Shadow's behavior, but found nothing. Weeks turned into a month, and the nightly growling continued. The suspense was taking a toll. Sarah and Mark were exhausted and increasingly worried. They started to keep a closer watch, their nights filled with apprehension. One evening, as Sarah was rocking Ethan, Shadow rested his head on her lap, his eyes soft and full of concern. He licked Ethan's head gently, then turned his gaze back towards the baby's face, a low whine escaping his throat. It was as if he was trying to communicate something they couldn't understand. The thought they had been desperately trying to avoid began to creep into their minds. Could Shadow, their beloved companion, somehow be a threat to their child? The idea was heartbreaking, but the relentless nightly growling fueled their fear. They even started discussing the unthinkable, rehoming Shadow for Ethan's safety. If you're enjoying this heartwarming tale of Shadow's mysterious behavior, please take a moment to like this story and subscribe to Heroic Tales and Wings for more incredible stories about animals. Then, one terrifying night, everything shifted. Sarah was jolted awake not by a growl, but by frantic barking. Shadow was at their bedroom door, his bark sharp and insistent, a level of urgency they had never witnessed before. He then ran towards the nursery, barking frantically. Sarah and Mark scrambled out of bed, their hearts pounding with dread. They found Shadow by Ethan's crib, whimpering and nudging the baby insistently with his nose. Sarah reached into the crib and her blood ran cold. Ethan was still, his face pale, and he wasn't breathing. "Mark, he's not breathing," Sarah screamed, her voice choked with panic. Just then, Shadow, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, let out a series of sharp, desperate barks right next to Ethan's face, nudging him again and again. Suddenly, Ethan gasped, a tiny, weak inhale, followed by a heart-wrenching cry. Relief washed over Sarah and Mark in a dizzying wave. They rushed Ethan to the emergency room. After a battery of tests, the doctors delivered a shocking diagnosis. Ethan had a rare form of sleep apnea, causing him to stop breathing intermittently during the night. The realization hit them like a physical blow. Shadow hadn't been threatening Ethan. He had been trying to save him. His nightly growls were his desperate attempts to alert them to the silent danger lurking in their son's sleep. His frantic barking had been the final, life-saving alarm. From that day forward, their fear turned into profound gratitude and an even deeper bond with their loyal German Shepherd. They understood that Shadow's strange behavior wasn't aggression, but an incredible act of canine intuition and unwavering devotion. Shadow continued his nightly vigils, but now, Sarah and Mark listened with a different kind of anticipation, the comforting sound of their furry guardian watching over their precious child. Shadow wasn't just their dog. He was Ethan's silent protector, a true hero with a heart of gold.